Snackbar. My name is Geraldine, and with me I have.
Hi, I'm Jed.
Yes, and today it's a double feature with two animated films that just came out, and I'm really excited to talk about both of them. And yeah, so do you want to dive into it, or do you want to recommend any films that you saw that's not, the two of them?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about a couple of movies I saw recently. I saw Creed 2 recently.
Yeah.
I thought it was okay. I liked it. I liked it actually, I think, about as much as I did the first Creed because it is very formulaic. Like, it follows all of those sports movie beats. But I think the director really focused on the drama rather than the spectacle and the action, and focused on kind of exploring the characters and the characters' relationships with each other. And for that reason, I think it's actually a bit more worthwhile than your typical type of a movie of this type.
I see. I really loved
Yeah.
the first Creed that came out, but I haven't seen Creed 2 yet. So it's good to know that you enjoyed it just as much.
Yeah, I think it lacks a little bit of the personal touch of the first Creed. I think the first Creed felt a bit more of a personal movie for Ryan Coogler, and this one he couldn't do because he was doing Black Panther. So he recommended his classmate or his junior from film school, who is an up and comer called Stephen Capel Jr., 30 years old, which is depressing. So it's 30 years old directing like Sylvester Stallone and Michael B. Jordan. And the big draw for this movie is the return of the character of Ivan Drago, played by Dolph Lundgren, who was the villain of Rocky IV, the big Russian boxer in I Must Break You. So he is like one of the best parts of the movie because he was very much a one-dimensional kind of stoic, almost silent villain in Rocky IV. But in this one, they give him quite a bit of character depth. They focus on the relationship between him and his son Victor, who is the main villain of this movie, played by a guy called Florent Munteanu, and they contrast that relationship between the relationship that Adonis Creed has with Rocky and has with his fiancée, with his mom. So it's kind of like contrasting the warmth and the support that surrounds Adonis Creed with the coldness and harshness that surrounds Victor Drago. So that to me was really
Okay,
interesting.
that's cool.
Yeah.
What's the other one that you want to talk about?
Widows. I just saw Widows by Steve McQueen.
I heard that was marketed wrongly. That's the only thing I heard about that film, and it didn't do very well.
Yeah, it has such good reviews, but really I thought it was okay. I think like it's very obvious that this is an art house director trying to do more of a mainstream
okay.
genre film. So it's kind of like it basically is a heist thriller. The premise is that these four criminals, like career thieves, they die during a job that's gone wrong. So the leader has left behind instructions for his wife to complete the heist on their behalf, or rather, the wives are intimidated into completing the heist so that they can pay off the outstanding debt that their husbands owe to the criminals that employed
I'll be honest,
them.
it sounds more like a comedy than it does a thriller, but it's good. It's good, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
you enjoyed it in the end?
I did, but at the same time, I think that it has very obvious flaws, and the tone is a very obvious flaw. So, like, yeah, what you said about it being a comedy, there are moments where it's like kind of fish out of water. It's these four women who are not used to doing this kind of thing, figuring it out. But then there are moments that are really intense. The cast is led by Viola Davis, and Viola Davis, like in full-on serious badass Viola Davis mode. So the four lead actresses are Viola Davis, Michelle Rodriguez, Cynthia Erivo, and Elizabeth Debicki. Elizabeth Debicki is very good. She played the villain Ayesha in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. She's a very tall woman. And then Liam Neeson is in it, Colin Farrell, Robert Duvall, Daniel Kaluuya from Get Out. I think he's a bit miscast because he's playing the scary henchman in this movie. So he's playing the mob enforcer who goes to rough up and beat up and kill all the guys who don't follow the orders of the mob boss. And I don't find Daniel Kaluuya scary.
Okay.
But a lot of people like this performance. Yeah. And okay, there's a dog. There's a really cute dog in this movie. There's a dog called Olivia who plays a dog called Olivia. And she's really cute.
Okay.
So watch it for the dog. for the dog and the Oscar winners and nominees. But yeah, it kind of struggles. Like, is it a political thriller? Is it a heist movie? Is it like female bonding kind of feminist genre movie? What is it trying to be? And also, there's a lot of political commentary. There's a lot of stuff about race and class and politics and how there's a subplot that two politicians are running
Mm-hmm.
for the position of alderman, but both are equally crooked. So Colin Farrell's on one side and Brian Tyree Henry's on the other side, but both are crooked in their own
I'm
ways.
sorry. I'm just the way you describe it doesn't make me want to watch it. I'll watch it one day, I guess. Yeah, doesn't seem like my type of movie.
Yeah, it's a bit weird because like the main feeling I got was, okay, this is a genre movie, but it doesn't want to be a genre movie. Like, you could easily take this plot and it could be a TV movie made for cheap with like no name actors that you watch on HBO on a Saturday afternoon. But this is that basic plot, but dressed up and given kind of a prestige drama Oscar bait treatment. So those two things don't sit very well with each other. Like, the whole time I was watching this, I
Okay.
felt like it was a bit similar to that movie The Town, directed by Ben Affleck. But that one was better than this. In terms of like, this is a crime thriller, but there's more drama going on. There's a bit more social commentary, and the heroes are criminals, but you understand why they need to do what they need to do. So this was a little bit of that, but there's also a lot of other things that kind of clutter the plate a bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yep.
All right, so don't watch it. And
Or maybe watch it.
another film I recommend you not to watch is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them: The Crimes of Grindelwald.
Oh my god, yeah! I wanted to get into Grindelwald with you. Yes. I wanted to like. Oh my gosh, this movie, man.
This movie
Wow.
is very bad,
Wow.
and I cannot.
Wow.
Sorry, my cat is meowing in the background, but
Hi, cat.
but it amazes me that this is the same person who wrote all the Harry Potter books. And I understand like her world building is amazing, but sometimes they don't really make sense. Like the whole why would you want kids to die, for the Goblet of Fire or whatever that thing is. And it's just and there are so many character motivations that don't line up with the action. And a lot of people say that this feels like a setup. It doesn't. It just feels like it's a whole lot of nothing. Like it becomes a very weird, strange family, and a lot of coincidences happen, and it's. I think the one that breaks my heart the most is that what I love so much about Fantastic Beasts, the first one, and Where to Find Them is it's not about any it. It's barely related to Harry, or it's barely related to something where the world is going to end. It was just about a guy who
Mm-hmm.
accidentally lost his case and let a few monsters loose, or a few beasts loose.
Yeah, incompetent zookeeper Eddie
Yeah,
Redmayne.
and,
I
and
like
that's
that movie.
cool because you see another side of Harry Potter, and now you're seeing basically the same thing except done worse. And 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 Johnny Depp is so miscast, I feel. I can't
Yeah.
believe this is we have to look at this and say, oh, this is Harry Potter canon. Because Harry Potter is quality and quality only. We ignore Cursed Child for a reason, and now we can't ignore this because this is part of the movie canon, and it sucks. It's terrible. Don't watch it. If you love Harry Potter, hopefully the next film will be better. Like J.K. Rowling, I hope she takes in feedback and realizes what she did wrong and try to course correct it a little bit. Because I always had a lot of issues with her saying things that she didn't need to say, like a lot of retrospective things that I didn't want to hear, like, oh, I shouldn't have put Ron and Hermione together, but I did that uh because reasons, because that's what I wanted to do in the first place. Or like she said how I forgot which one was the one that died. Fred died, right? So George married Fred's ex-girlfriend and named their son Fred. Oh, sorry, yeah, and named their son Fred, and apparently he can't cast the what's it called, the expecto patronum thing, or his patronus. He can't do that anymore because Fred died. And I'm like, why would you tell us that? And of course, Yeah,
I'm
and
completely zoning
it's
out now. I'm
okay. So she
sorry.
said
Yeah.
Dumbledore was gay, right? And she finally has the chance to do it, but I don't know why she just didn't do it in this film. Like at first you thought, oh, maybe she's going for it, but it turns out it was another thing, and that kind of just annoyed me. I just this film is bad.
No, yeah, I totally agree with you. No, this movie is 2.5 hours of me going, God damn it, Joanne. Joanne, why? And there are a couple of reviews with great headlines that I really agree with. There's one that said, with Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, J.K. Rowling has reached peak George Lucas. It's like, yes, very much so. Like, nobody is there to tell her it's a bad idea. And Steve Close is just like, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. And the studio's like, yes, whatever you want, Joanne. And the other review says that this series of movies feels like it's becoming absurdly detailed
Exactly.
footnotes to the main Harry Potter series. Yeah, and I mean, like, I remember doing the episode about the first Fantastic Beasts movie 2 years ago, and we both liked it, and you liked it a little bit more than I did. But the thing I said was the world building is a lot more interesting than the story. And the other thing I said was, yeah, what you said earlier, that this is a good jumping on point if you're not super familiar with the mainline canon, because it's far enough removed from that. But this one dives all the way in to the mainline canon, and I will disagree with you that I do think it feels like setup. It's just that
Okay.
it's so bad that you don't know what it's setting up. But the problem is that this is movie 2 out of 5. So the usual sense of dissatisfaction that you feel when you watch movie 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 2 is exponentially multiplied.
But like even I felt, in Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part One, it was set up, but it had character development. It moved the plot
Yeah,
along,
yeah.
and this just felt like nothing. Yeah, and this,
Yeah, it was building on 6 previous movies. Yeah, and this one is, yeah, is building on whatever's dancing around Joanne's head.
I can't believe this is a movie. I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, and what is also disappointing is that, like, a lot of the design stuff is pretty cool. I love the French Ministry of Magic. Like, that's pretty. I want to hang out there. But yeah, they did such awful things to characters that people loved from the first one, and then the fan service was so obvious and clumsy. Like, the camera sweeps up from behind the mountain over Hogwarts, and you hear Hedwig's theme like blaring.
Okay, admittedly, I cried.
And it's like,
I
okay,
cried. I won't lie.
yeah, because that I mean, it produces such a Pavlovian response. Like, to me, it's along the lines of, and actually even worse than in Jurassic World, when they walk through the old visitor center and you hear the John Williams theme playing on the piano. Like, same thing. And when, like, they walk into the Great Hall and you see all the candles and it's like, don't you love this? Don't you love this? Yes, I do love this. But why?
And speaking of
that was a
characters
lot
that
of
we
the
loved in
movie,
the
yeah.
first film that they completely screwed over, Queenie. Queenie had it the worst.
Yeah. That was like, once I saw where that was going, I decided to cut all emotional ties with Queenie. Because I love the Queenie character from the first one. I love Queenie and Tina. I love their relationship. I love Queenie and, what's his name? Dan Fogler's character. Uh, the
Yeah, I
Green
forgot
Man.
his name too. He's a good character.
Yeah, I liked him, but then they did some sort of reverse fridge thing in this movie that was just very strange. And yeah, okay, like when they went to go visit Nicholas Flamel, and and he opens his closet and he's like, "Look, there's a thing in here that you guys should recognize." And it's almost like he's gonna look at the camera and wink. It's like, look at the thing, and like, why? It was just like in the beginning of Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull when they blow open the corner of the crate and you see the Ark of the Covenant. And like, okay. So they did that in this movie. Yeah, but you kind of know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I just like
Yeah.
yeah, it's not a good film.
It's so frustrating. And like, Jude Law as young Dumbledore, they were trying to find ways to squish him into this movie when clearly it wasn't an organic thing to put him in this movie.
Yep.
Like, he was going to have a cameo in the beginning and the end, and then in the middle they tried to find ways to insert young Dumbledore, and it was so awkward.
Oh, can I just say, it's very weird that J.K.
Yes.
Rowling killed two kids, one toddler and one infant in this film, and I was very disturbed
Yeah,
by
man.
that. I don't know what's wrong.
Get therapy, Joanne. No, and it's interesting because I was talking about this a lot to a friend of mine who really, really loves the Cursed Child stage play. She's going to see it 3 times. She's going to see it a 4th time. And she was saying how it reads really awful on the page, but the play and the way the characters are acted and the stagecraft, the magic, the illusions, the set design, all of that, it adds something that isn't there on the page. And I feel like this is not that. And I mean, even with Cursed Child, she had an actual playwright, Jack Thorne, to come in and help her. But this one is like written by J.K. Rowling. And there are some people who can write screenplays and novels, but they are very, very different. And it's a different kind of skill set and a different kind of mental format and muscle memory that you kind of draw on to write those two things. Yeah. So that's Harry Potter and the Grimes of Grindelwald.
Alright.
I did a stupid Photoshop. I put Grimes' head over Johnny Depp's head.
I really hope she recovers from this, because I don't think I can take any more heartbreak like that again. Because
I feel your pain, man, because I know how much of a Potterhead you are.
Yeah, and
so I feel your pain.
I've always been so in awe that Harry Potter had 9 films that were decent to amazing.
Yeah. Even the weaker ones in the main line, there's something there. I mean, even like Goblet of Fire, I like Victor Crumb, you know.
Alright, let's go on to better movies. First, let's go to Wreck-It Ralph.
And this is great. Like, I think this is going to be a really fun episode because not only are you an animator, you also just went on a very exciting school trip that you can make repeated reference to, and I encourage you to.
I never do
because,
cool things. Yes.
Usually it's me. No. Honestly, I think what you did kind of eclipses any cool thing that I've done. Like, so awesome, the stuff that you did on this trip. Okay, so let's jump into Wreck-It Ralph 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet.
I didn't realize that there was no Wreck-It Ralph 2, and then the title was Ralph Breaks the Internet. Apparently it's just Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Yeah, that's right. I think it varies for territories. Like, I think some countries call it Wreck-It Ralph 2. A bit like Rapunzel, A Tangled Tale, you remember? Yeah. So, yeah, I was always very confused. I was calling it Wreck-It Ralph 2 : Ralph Breaks the Internet, but actually it's officially just Ralph Breaks the Internet.
So what's Ralph Breaks the Internet about, Chad?
So this movie comes 6 years after the original movie. So just like in real time, 6 years have elapsed within the time of the movie. So at Litwack's arcade, both Ralph and Vanellope, they're friends now. They've been settling into the new routine. And Ralph really likes it. He really likes just being the designated bad guy of Fix-It Felix. But Vanellope is getting really bored of her daily routine over in Sugar Rush. And the courses, the tracks aren't challenging to her anymore. So when Litvack connects the arcade to the internet, Vanellope is interested to kind of explore, and they find an excuse, a reason to go to the internet to procure an item required for the game to work, for Sugar Rush to work. And as a result, they kind of get lost in this whole web and maze of that is the internet. They meet various interesting characters, including a badass racer called Shank, who is the star of a Grand Theft Auto-like game called Slaughter Race. And they run into viruses and bugs.
Obviously, this is a sequel. This is the first sequel since Down Under, Rescuers Down Under for Disney. It's very...
Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
I think... Oh, wait, hang on. I guess Peter Pan 2, do people count that as a Disney animated feature? But I don't think that's done by the animated
No,
team.
as in like the theatrical team. Yeah, because there have been a lot of, Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time, that kind of thing.
So this is very interesting. How did you feel about the first Wreck-It Ralph film?
The first Wreck-It Ralph movie is one of my favorite recent Disney
mine
movies.
too.
I really, really love that movie. And what I love about that movie is that it's a movie that kind of deconstructs archetypes, deconstructs video game characters and kind of stock fictional archetypes, but it doesn't feel cynical in its deconstruction. It's a very, very meta movie. It's a very meta-fictional movie, but it doesn't feel like it's being a wise ass or a smart aleck, because the more it deconstructs the characters, the better you get to know them, and it kind of like digs underneath the archetypes and gives you more going on to the characters than you first think there is. So that to me was like really, really good storytelling, because it built this colorful, fascinating world. It had all of these wacky supporting characters, but the central relationship between Ralph and Vanellope, they kind of held that as the core, and that is, I think, the strength of the sequel. Is as big and as wild as it gets, and sometimes it kind of gets away from itself. They still hold Ralph and Vanellope and their friendship and the nature of what brings them together, what makes them similar and what makes them different, as the core of the story.
Yeah. But you know, compared to the first one, I guess you didn't like it just as much.
I think this is a really, really good movie, but I still prefer the first one. I think the first one had a bit more freshness and creativity. And this one, it does have a little bit of that sequel thing where a sequel needs to be bigger, needs to be better, and we need to have more worlds, more characters, more environments. So it felt like there was a little bit of that. But it didn't have that as strongly, that kind of sequel like this feeling as strongly as a lot of other sequels, because of what I mentioned earlier, because of keeping the relationship between Ralph and Vanellope as its center. So it felt like every time the movie was getting a bit carried away, it pulled back to that. So that was a very skillful kind of thing, which I'm glad this movie did.
For me, I think Wreck-It Ralph was like my favorite recent Disney film before Zootopia. So it had that record for quite a while, and I wasn't really looking forward to this sequel. And when I watched it, it was not as good, obviously, as the first film, but I just thought like Ralph was a lot more annoying in this film, and it bothered me as to how toxic their relationship almost became. And I guess that was the point of this. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
That's interesting. Yeah, yeah. So, sorry, go ahead. I'll
yeah,
come in with what I thought about that later. Yeah.
I don't know, that really bothered me throughout the entire film. And I know that it's the point of the film, like that's his character development, but I feel it almost stopped because he was so lovable in the first film, and I was very bothered by how they made him almost a total villain in this, because he's the one that's stopping Vanellope from doing what she wants to do, and like he's the one holding her back. And I think it's because of their he keeps saying how they're best friends and they're always together, and how happy he is here, that he doesn't really give her a chance to talk and to think for herself, and she's always thinking about Ralph before she thinks for herself. And I didn't really, it kind of scared me a little bit. But and because I watched this in the Disney lot, because I was lucky enough to win the lottery for it, and people there went crazy, and I don't know why I didn't go as crazy as they did, because when I was watching it, I saw a lot of flaws in this film, and I felt like this movie was
I understand. Yeah.
very scatterbrained in a lot of ways. Like they kept it's like squirrel, and then they go back to do whatever they're doing. And yeah, I like this film. I think that this is I don't like the story. Okay, I'm sorry, like my mic is going crazy right now, but I don't like this story. I don't like the story that they're telling. But the story that they're telling is told well, because I watched it a second time when I came back, and I felt like every scene had a purpose. So it wasn't even so this is clearly just a personal. Oh my god, my cat.
Yeah.
So this is, sorry, I'm talking badly about Wreck-It
Hi, cat. You should do the Nick Fury thing with the cat.
Where was I?
Fury.
So I watched it again when I came back, and I thought that this was a well-told story. The problem is I didn't like the core of the story. I like the relationship. Well, I didn't, but I love the relationship between Ralph and Vanellope in the first film, and I think that that was what carried. That was what pushed me through this film, even though I was like, oh my god, Vanellope, just get rid of him. He's so bad for you. I don't know. That's how I feel. I know a lot of people disagree with me that Vanellope shouldn't have done something that she did in the movie that was kind of, I guess, an asshole thing to do, but I was kind of happy for her that she, finally made a choice for herself. But, that's just me.
Right. Yeah, I loved hearing your take on it, and I think that it makes a lot of sense. before I continue, I gotta say, like, watching a Disney animated movie on the Disney lot is legit cooler than anything I've ever done. Like, I would love to have that experience. So yeah, I think in this movie, what you described as the scatterbrainedness, I feel like it had the appearance of being more scatterbrained than it actually was. Like, it felt like the squirrel thing was kind of intentional in that it was supposed to simulate the overstimulation of the sensory input that you get when you're on the internet, and kind of like how everything is coming at you and you have no time to focus on one thing and you're moving on to another thing, and that's kind of like me on TV tropes. So I felt like it captured that feel. I hear you about the Ralph and Vanellope thing, so this is why I liked it. I think that in the idea is that Ralph before Vanellope has never really had any friends. And that's kind of the whole thing that's set up in the first movie. And so once he has like a friend, he keeps on saying best friend, because he's trying to reinforce that for himself. He is so clingy to the idea of someone who likes him and someone whom he can be around and appreciates him for who he is, that once that idea is even threatened a little bit, he overreacts. And he sort of faces the consequences of that in this movie, and towards the end he realizes kind of what a monster he's been. But all of his motivations are motivated by his fear of losing his friend. So to me, that's what made him sympathetic, even though he dares do things that are kind of villainous or that are sabotaging Vanellope and her own motivations in this movie. Because it's kind of like, I agree with you, Vanellope should be her own person. But at the same time, she finds something in Ralph and Ralph finds something in her that they didn't have on their own or in their own circles, in their own games before. So there is like a dynamic to the relationship which this movie kind of tests. And tests in the form of the people and the characters and the situations that they encounter in the internet. So that's, like, I get what you mean in how it can be read as toxic. But I read it as, like, Ralph gradually realizes how toxic it is, even though he does not at first. And he tries to make amends for it when it's almost too late. And that's kind of the finale of the movie. Like, the thing they are battling at the end of the movie represents all of his insecurities, all of his fears, and how he's projected all of that and kind of put his entire worth into the concept of being friends with Vanellope. So that to me was a very tragic element to Ralph.
One thing I really love about this movie is how it's amazing how creative Disney can be. You know, if you compare it to something like the Emoji Movie, where you don't really understand how the world works, this is like, oh, they are avatars, and then this is what happens when this thing happens in the virtual world and how it relates to the real world. It's so cool. And I love, you know, all the spams and stuff, and what a firewall looks like.
The pop-up ads, the establishing of the rules is done in such a visual way.
It's amazing.
like I love the bit where there's like, okay, I forgot what it was, whether it's like a safe on Anvil or something that falls on an avatar in the internet, and then in the real world she just disconnects and she doesn't know what happened. I thought that was really, really fun.
My favorite one is the firewall. I love that, where he's trying to get the person to click on the link and then the bodyguard comes in. It's really, really good.
And we need to talk about the Disney princess scene, because that was something you were really looking forward to, and you said earlier that this movie was your Avengers, because it was all the Disney princesses officially coming together in one Disney.
This year's Avengers for me was not the Disney princesses, and it wasn't the Avengers. It was Super Smash Brothers, and it's awesome. It's a game about Nintendo characters coming together, and yesterday they just announced, I'm dating this, I don't care. Yesterday, they just announced that Joker from Persona 5 is coming to Smash Bros. And I'm so freaking happy. It's a good game.
Freaked out.
Yes, I know. She and I have very similar tastes, I realize.
Yeah, both she and you are like super Zelda stans. It's great. It's very cute.
And we both love Rivali.
People freak out over things they love.
We both love Rivali, who is like the asshole that everyone hates in the new Zelda game.
Yeah, so this is a corner of geekdom with which I am unfamiliar. But yeah, I know that Smash is like bringing all the characters together, and it's kind of like injustice.
Yes, I guess.
Nintendo injustice, yeah.
But yeah, the Disney princess scene. I'm so glad it was as short as it was.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
didn't overstay their
It
welcome.
was
Yes,
just
it was
enough.
just enough. It
Yeah,
was funny enough. It was fan servicey enough. I really love it. I love the way
yeah.
they implement it, and the most amazing part is that it actually moved the story forward.
It did. It wasn't like just a side quest, which is what I was sure that whole bit of her going to Oh My Disney would be.
Sorry, I was drinking my coffee. Yeah.
Oh, no
Yeah,
worries at
so
all. Yeah.
I really love that scene, and I don't know whether they'll ever make a Disney princess based movie, but I mean they've done that before, but not like a high budgeted one. I hope they do one day because those Disney princesses are so awesome. Or at the very least, make short films before the main movie. Every Disney film or something, I don't know. I would look forward to that.
Yeah, yeah, because like I mean, oh my god, what I wouldn't give for, a Disney princess style web series that is like
Yes.
the Barbie Dream House thing. It's just them like hanging out, being roommates and being annoying to each other. Yeah, and this scene was conceived by one of the co-writers of Moana. And it was something that she came up with while working on Moana, something she pitched to the Wreck-It Ralph team. So she wrote this scene and she kind of came up with it. And a big thing of the scene is kind of pointing out the kind of the unfeminist tropes of a lot of the earlier Disney princess movies and how Disney is kind of being self-aware of that. And yeah, I mean, like, is a tiny bit of a spoiler, but you see the Disney princesses in that scene, but then you do see them again. And then when you see them again, it's like, okay, that's nice. Because it was like when you saw the T-Rex in the first Jurassic Park, and at the very, very end, the T-Rex shows up, and you're like, okay, now the movie kind of feels complete.
Hang on. Okay, yeah, sorry. I thought like it stopped recording. Yeah, so uh you want to go into spoilers? I think there's a lot of this. I think this film is not as good as the first film, but I think that's because of how I interpreted Ralph's character. So I think, yeah,
Yeah, and that is a valid interpretation, and it's interesting to me to hear that from you because I feel like it's very admirable. I think that this is going to kind of undermine my integrity as a critic, but if I watch the movie on the Disney lot, it would be very hard for me to not absolutely color that experience with the thrill, the
I think it's because
associated
I was
with it,
eating
so that
salty
you were able to.
popcorn, and I don't like salty popcorn. It's too much.
So the salty popcorn was kind of like your totem in Inception that reminds you you're in a dream.
It reminded me that you know I still can criticize Disney if I want to because that salty popcorn was not good.
I like that very much.
Yeah, so
That's actually a very good psychological tool. Maybe I should just be eating salty popcorn every time I review a movie.
yeah, so this is I would recommend this movie either way because I really think that this all comes down to
I would,
my
yeah.
personal preference because honestly I don't see anything too wrong with the storytelling. Yeah, so if you like the story, I think
Yeah.
you'll really enjoy this film. And obviously, there's a shot in this film that will probably make you cry because when that shot came, I heard all
Yeah.
the sniffles, and it was really amazing. Yeah,
Let's go into spoilers. What shot is that?
it's the shot where the "You Are My Hero" comes together. The broken hearts come together.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The thing with so like that was very
It
very
was
manipulative.
super
The stupid
manipulative.
medallion was very manipulative. Yeah, it was just like him destroying the car in the first one.
No, okay, I will defend the car thing because that one
Yeah, actually like that. It was
it really
earned, right?
it felt yeah it was earned because you see them building up and then you see why he did that and then in this one it's like it just happened like the shot was there and it's such a manipulative shot but oh my god is it effective like I teared up and I was very touched by that scene because like it's really cool that Disney kind of gave them a bittersweet ending because you never really have that with Disney. It's always a happy ending.
It's always too neat, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but she leaves him in the end, which I thought I was very impressed that
Yeah.
Disney allowed that to happen. But
That
obviously,
was what both characters had earned. I think by that
yeah.
point they had earned the right to make peace with the separate ways they were going on. Yeah.
And did you get like a dad daughter vibe from Ralph and Vanellope?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
her
kind of
going
like
off to college in a way.
yes. It's kind of like he's very protective of her, and almost like Shank is like Shank is like the cool new stepmom or something like that. And then he's like, no, I don't want to lose my daughter. This is my daughter.
Yeah. Or not.
Or Shank is like
Yeah.
the cool auntie or something, and it's like no 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 no, that's my kid. You don't get to
Or like
feel protective over her.
or like it's just her friends, like she because she's in a leather jacket and all that, he thinks that she's bad news.
She's a bad influence, yeah.
Yeah.
And I felt the parent child thing actually a lot with Shank and Vanellope as well.
Yeah.
Like the bit where Shank was kind of sitting with her and listening to her problems, it was very much like that's the cool mom or the cool aunt kind of character.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love Shank. Like Shank is, I think, really really great. She's kind of designed to be a breakout character, and it works.
I thought the breakout character was like the nose model.
Oh, no small, right? Yeah, I think he's a breakout character in the traditional sense of like more of a supporting
Yeah.
role. And in terms of, yeah, and I didn't know Shank would be as big a player as she was. I thought it would be like Gal Gadot gets a cameo, but they really made her important in Vanellope's arc. And I like you said that you don't think that Disney does action sequences as well as some of the other animated studios. So how did you feel about the main like car
Was good.
chase, the slaughter
It was
race
very
car
good.
chase in this one?
I really enjoyed that. Yeah, it
I
was
liked
very
it, yeah.
well
It was
choreographed.
really good.
Yeah, it was really good. I don't want to say that again.
The geography of it,
I
yeah.
loved.
The choreography
I would just like to
of
say
it.
I love the animation that they have for the players in the game. It is so good. Like I totally related to that so much. Where they're just janky and stuff, and the way they turn, it's just like dut, 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 dut.
Oh yeah, the
It's
avatars.
so
Yeah,
good.
yeah. The head goes first, and the rest of the body kind of follows after. Yeah. That was so great. Oh, like Slaughter Race is so great. Slaughter Race is so much fun, and the I hope it doesn't get spoiled for a lot of people because I didn't know there was going to be an I Want song. So when they got to the I Want song, it was very satisfying. And like my favorite little Easter egg is the shark in the sewer. She pops out and she like throws up a license plate, which is of course a license plate from Jaws. I was like, yeah, and I like that it was a lady shark because it was a Princess I
love
Want
it.
song.
That song is amazing.
It was so great.
Yeah, I like when I was kind of hoping that it was written by the people who did Frozen though. I think that they are very good lyricists, but
Ah, I see.
I
Yeah.
freaking love that scene. I was so hoping she would sing an I Want song, and she did it, and like
And
my
she
favorite
did,
part.
yeah. And I love to think about looking
Yeah.
at meaningful water.
And I never noticed that.
And about that's so funny. Yeah, I didn't notice that as well. And that was great. Like Moana's whole thing is meaningful water. And yeah, Gal Gadot did her own singing, and it was so good. It was really, really good. Yeah, so that to me was like when the movie was kind of in peak parody mode, when it was being the most meta it could be. And I think there's always a balance, because if you go too far in that direction, you become Deadpool and you kind of alienate the people who are there who want to be sincere about it. And I feel that Enchanted does that balance very, very well, in terms of it being sincere but also an affectionate kind of wink and nod and an acknowledgement of the tropes. So this movie, it had a little bit of that sense when it came to the Disney
All right, so
princesses.
let's talk about just Ralph and Penelope's relationship. I don't know. He was such a jerk to her. Like I knew she was a jerk to him at the end when she ditched him for Slaughter Race without telling him about it. But there's so many things that Ralph did that really annoyed me. Like, oh, I'm not a baby and stuff like that. Or he's so clearly jealous of Shank, and he I just hate the way he tries to pull back Penelope. who is so capable of so much more. And okay, I don't really understand why in the first film they said don't go turbo, but she clearly went turbo in this. But you know, whatever. I'm just basing this off this movie. But I just wish he was less whiny in this film because I don't know I don't know why John C. Riley put on that really whiny
Yeah.
voice for like the first two-thirds of this film. And I I just I mean like even to the part
Right.
where she was racing after she ditched him, she was racing and she saw his face or she saw his silhouette, which turned out to be a monkey or whatever. Like I felt like that was some kind of it almost
Yeah,
felt like
like the
she was
inflatable sign.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know how to say this without making victims of abusive relationships look this I don't want to compare both of them, but it does feel like that, right? Like you don't want to leave a person because that person is trying to say, "Oh, you are my one," I don't want to leave you.
Yeah, that she's kind of like Stockholm
Yes.
syndromed into. Yes, yeah.
I mean, that came across as Stockholm syndrome to me,
Okay.
and it just felt so
Okay, yeah.
toxic, and it was very hard for me to forgive Ralph
Right.
at that point because she clearly wants this, and he knows that she clearly wants this. So he's just putting up barriers for her to not improve herself or to not chase after her dreams because she's denying herself of that opportunity because she's afraid of what Ralph would think. And to me that's such a scary thought that someone can have so much control over what you want to do. So like that's so scary.
Yeah.
I found their relationship extremely toxic in this, and all the sincerity was gone, I felt, until after the climax.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
I don't know.
So I hear you. It makes sense. The reason why I wasn't as bothered by this, as much as I recognize and acknowledge a lot of those hallmarks of an unhealthy relationship or toxic relationship that you have mentioned, is that I think that's what the movie is about. I think the movie is about Ralph coming to terms with his own neediness and clinginess, and the reason why he feels that way, like I said earlier, is that he really has never had any friends, so he has no bar to measure a healthy friendship or a healthy relationship against. So once he has this friendship with Vanellope, he's kind of like, he makes that his whole world. And you kind of see that in people who are socially awkward, who have been outcast earlier in their lives, like when they get a really, really good friend later in their lives, suddenly that other person cannot have friends of their own because it's like, oh, you're betraying me now. And they amplify and magnify everything, but that's because of where they're coming from previously. So I felt like I was able to accept the story and the relationship going in that direction because the movie did address it. The movie did not
Yeah.
excuse Ralph for it, and Ralph had to deal with the consequences of it. And at the very end, when Ralph looks at like all the Ralph monsters, and he's like, "Oh, I see how this, how I can come off." That was really funny, and I thought like, okay, that's a good
All he had
epiphany
to do
moment for
was break the
him.
internet. Oh, and speaking of which, the part where he went viral,
Yeah.
amazing scenes. I don't care if they're pandering. I love them. They're very funny. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was, but it like so okay. I have this weird like dissonant thing. Like every time I see internet culture being acknowledged in mainstream culture, I jump out of my body a little bit because I'm like, no, I don't want to accept that this is real. I don't want to accept that this is where our culture is now. This is what kids are into now. I don't want to. I'm old and grumpy, and the pop culture that I
yeah.
grew up with is the only pop culture I want to accept.
And by contrast, for me, I love my memes. So I was very happy to see a scene full of memes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go on to into the Spider-Verse. But
Yeah.
before we do that, I just want to give a shout out to the best parents, which is Fix It Felix,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Ah,
Calhoun.
so great.
I was
And Calhoun, Sergeant Calhoun. Yeah. So
yeah
I was a bit sad that there wasn't a lot of them in the movie,
yeah,
but
but I
I got
also
it. I understood why they had to kind of sit it out.
I was kind of sad that there wasn't a side story with them taking care of the kids. But I think that the payoff for that joke worked. That
Yeah,
they
yeah.
was they turned out to be amazing parents. So that
It's
was
so
really
good.
funny.
It's so good. Yeah, it was so funny. The person, the friend whom I watched this movie with, she is a childcare teacher. So she was like laughing her head off the entire time at the end when they were talking about the secret
Yeah.
to parenting and the secret to raising kids. That was so funny.
Okay, so let's move on to a better movie, I would like to say.
Yeah.
Into the Spider-Verse. What's that about, Jet?
So Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the first theatrically released animated film about the Spider-Man character. So you think that you know the story of Peter Parker, but you don't know the story. You don't know the story of Miles Morales. So Miles Morales is off from the Ultimate Universe, and he is a kid who is of Latin and African American descent, and he becomes Spider-Man, but he realizes that he's not the only Spider-Man. There are also other Spider-Man from other universes. There is a Peter Parker in his universe, but then there's a Peter Parker in another universe. And a horrible accident collides the different worlds of the multiverse and brings Miles into contact with other incarnations of
Yes!
Spider-Man, including Spider-Man Noir, voiced by Nicolas Cage, who is this 1930s hard-boiled noir private eye. He comes into contact with Gwen Stacy, voiced by Haley Steinfeld, who comes from a reality where she couldn't stop Peter Parker, who is in that world, not Spider-Man, from dying. And then she became Spider-Woman of that world. As well as Penny Parker and SP//DR, from a far future, like anime-inspired little girl who controls a spider mech. And Peter Parker, Spider-Ham, who is voiced by John Mulaney, who is a funny animal, talking animal, like Warner Brothers Looney Tunes satire parody of Spider-Man. So they're all thrown together into this crazy adventure. At the same time, Miles has to deal with issues with his family, with his friends, and especially his relationship with his dad, a police officer named Jefferson, voiced by Brian Tyree Henry. And his uncle, the cool uncle who kind of understands him and encourages his artistic pursuits and is at loggerheads with his dad because he's not exactly on the right side of the law. Aaron, voiced by Mahershala Ali. So that's Into the Spider-Verse.
All right, I'm gonna story time, everyone. Tug in. So I went to CTN this year, which is called, I don't know what it's called, Creative Talent Network, where they bring in animators or anyone who's interested in the animation industry together in this convention, and they put on workshops on how to become a better animator or how movies are made and stuff like that. And it's like really cool. It's really expensive, but it's really cool.
So this is like your dream.
Yes, so this is my dream. I visited DreamWorks too, but yes. Okay, so my highlight, like before I went there, was definitely the Into the Spider-Verse workshop, because Phil Lord and Chris Miller, I don't think they've done a single bad film, and not only just not a single bad film. I don't think they've done a single film that wasn't excellent. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I think I said that wrongly. I don't think they've done a film that wasn't excellent. I love 21 Jump Street. I love 22 Jump Street. I love Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball. And obviously, Lego Movie was amazing.
And yeah, to be a bit more hipster, I love Clone High, man. Clone High is fantastic. It's very, very funny. Way ahead of its time. I kind of wish Clone High had a longer life.
Yeah, so I went to the panel. I made sure I left a Disney storyboarding course just so that I can be front and center when they were there.
Wow.
And it was absolutely worth it.
So Phil Lord and Chris Miller were there.
Yeah, they were there.
Nice. Yeah. Oh my god.
So
cool.
I
very,
sat front
very
and center. They were very funny. And then, surprise, they showed us the first tag of Into the Spider-Verse. And
is it the 35-minute kind of thing?
Yes,
that they
I think
showed at
so.
Comic-Con?
So I was very surprised by that because I thought they were just going to tell us how they made the film and stuff. And I watched it with a bunch of people who were super enthusiastic about the film. They were laughing, they were reacting perfectly. And I went out there shaking because it was so good.
Yeah.
And I managed to meet...
This legit sounds awesome, and I'm really, really happy you had this experience because I feel like you do deserve something like this to happen.
I don't, but okay.
No, you
And
do. Yeah, like the way you love movies and the way you love animation, I have a lot of respect for that, and I'm really really happy you got to go on
so
this trip.
I think I met Phil Lord first. And I told him, "Oh my God, I love the Lego movie," and it really touched me. And then I found myself crying in front of him, which I really hated. I was like, it was so
That's
amazing.
great.
Then I
I
was
like
like,
that actually.
"All right, don't."
It's so cute.
So when
It's
I
so
was gonna
cute.
meet Chris Miller next, I was like, "Okay, don't talk about the Lego movie." So I went to Chris Miller. I'm like, "Oh man,
Yeah.
I love Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball. I code it every single time." And then he asked, "Oh, what's your favorite code?" And I said, "I'm fine. It's just pain." And I realized I got that code wrong. Like 10 seconds after I said it, I'm like, "Oh shit, I got it wrong." Yeah. So that was my experience of Crystal and Phil Miller, and I think I creeped them out. I definitely creeped one of them out, I'm sure. But it was so I was
No,
really, really
no,
looking
yeah.
forward to this film, and I watched it immediately when it came out on preview, and it,
Yeah, yeah, because it had a
I was still
sneak
so blown
period.
away
Yeah.
by this film. Like watching the first act again,
Okay.
like it just brought me back in. It was so good. But then it's amazing how this film got better and better and better, just like a film should. But like this, it's amazing, and the climax.
So,
Sorry, out of curiosity, where did the 35 minutes cut off? Like, what was the part that it ended at, the preview ended at?
It cut off at the part when Peter was talking about his story again after,
the
yeah, the out of shape
the
Peter
out of
was saying,
shape
"All right,
Peter.
let's go back and let me tell you my story,"
Yeah.
and that was where it cut off. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
it's
Okay.
it's quite an experience, and it's my highlight of my US trip, and I went to Disneyland, so that's saying something.
Yay. Nice.
I
Yeah.
thought the climax of this film, I was so worried it went a certain way, like a beam in the sky, and you have to stop it, but it
Mm.
went a totally different route, and it's so good. This movie is
Okay.
amazing. It's probably my favorite comic book movie ever. I the visuals, the
Wow.
character work,
Okay.
the storytelling, the story, the way it's shot is, I cannot believe that someone had it in their head and someone gave them the money to do it. And these are the people, and I've always loved Sony
To do
Animation. I
this,
think
yeah,
that they get
yeah.
a bad rep, but I think they do things with animation that no other company does. And they do it very creatively, and they try to make it as 2D as possible, which I really appreciate. I mean, you look at Hotel Transylvania, you look at Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball, but these are the people who did Emoji Movie, and they did this. So I was very mind blown as I was watching this film. It's so good. It's so good. Nothing I say, because my command of English is not very good, but so that's why I say words cannot convey how blown away I was with this film. Amazing. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh. No, no worries at all. I'm really glad to hear your perspective as someone who is an animator and as someone who did get to meet Phil Lord and Chris Miller and fangirl over them as I would fangirl, fanboy, fan person
Over many things and many people.
Yeah, so this movie, before we get to that, wait, I lost a train of thought. Anyway, okay, so this movie, I I did not love it as much as I thought I was gonna love it, and this is one of those things where after reading all of the reviews and seeing how everyone else thought, I was like, wait, is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
Because I feel a 7 out of 10 out for this. And everyone is feeling a 9 out of 10 and a 10 out of 10 for this. Is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong in my
Oh,
deep
I,
black
I
soul?
think I'm not sure, but it really helps that the visuals are so incredible. But even even without the visuals, I feel the story itself is very smart.
Okay.
It's very smartly written. It's very funny. It has a lot of heart, and it's so focused on making Miles the main character. Like, even though there are so many different Spider-Mans, you know who your main character is. His relationship with his father, his relationship with his uncle, his relationship with Fisk, why
Yeah.
he wants to do the thing that he does. He's so sincere about everything that he does. You understand where he's coming from immediately in the first scene.
Yeah.
Like, it's the setup for this film, the character setup.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't believe this is a film. It's because, okay, I really want to try to join. I wanted to join Sony Animation before Into the Spider-Verse was a thing because I love their animation. But after seeing this, I'm like, maybe it's not for me because it's so good. It's so it's both depressing and inspiring at the same time. You know what you see, but even the story is something that I would never think of.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that a lot. Okay, so sorry about that. What I was gonna say earlier that I forgot to say is that the way you were comparing this to the Emoji Movie, and it's both are done by Sony Pictures Animation. I guess it's kind of like saying, the visual effects in Transformers and in Jurassic Park are both done by ILM. So it's kind of like who is leading the charge, who is dictating the direction of it. It doesn't matter how skilled the individual animators are, or how good the team is. It's like whether you're in service of a good story, whether you're in service of a good idea. And there are a lot of good ideas that began this. And I feel like a lot of it can be chalked up to, it does have that energy of Phil Lord and Chris Miller. That kind of anything is possible, let's go kind of energy. Which is something that I think Solo was missing a little bit of because they were cut out of it. But there was still like drops of it there, and if they had remained on, it would have been crazy, and I would love to have seen what that was. But with this movie, I think one of the co-directors is Pete Ramsey, who did Rise of the Guardians, right? And that's another very like underrated kind of movie. Like that, I love that movie a lot, and not just because I was aggressively shipping pitch with everyone else.
All right.
But yeah, that's a good like Christmas kind of classic movie, and that movie had a lot of the influence of Guillermo del Toro as well.
By the way,
a lot of that sense of a holiday movie. Yeah, and okay, so this movie, I give it a lot of credit for being extremely ambitious, very experimental, and very bold. And it's very admirable that this is a Spider-Man movie which is about how there are too many Spider-Man movies. And that's a crazy place to start. It's like really, really cool. But at the same time, I feel like the more it jumped in, the further it dived, and the more it explored the ideas. Like a little bit of it got away from it. And I don't really know why I felt this way, but I felt like this movie felt really long. It honestly, when I watched it, felt like it was 2.5 hours long. And I can't say that it's a problem with the pacing. And I can't say that there's not enough action, or that the characters weren't interesting, or the story wasn't engaging, because all of those things I felt like ticked the boxes and were done right. But it still felt very, very long, and I can't really express why.
So it felt like it drags. Well, I didn't think it drags, but for you, maybe it drags out a little bit more than it should.
Yeah, and like I wouldn't. That's a weird thing. Is like I wouldn't use the word drag, but it just felt really, really long, and it didn't. It wasn't like I was bored or I felt like they weren't doing it well. And I feel like a lot of the scenes which were just the characters talking to each other were almost as engaging as some of the action sequences. Like there's this bit where Miles and 616 Peter, like out of shape midlife crisis Peter, they fall out of a building, and Peter's walking up the building as he's talking to Miles. And the way that scene is choreographed is just amazing. Like it's just them talking to each other, but the way both of them are placed in relation to the building and in relation to each other it just gave it so much energy, and it felt like watching a Looney Tunes cartoon. It felt like watching a classic kind of animation with the timing of it. So I really liked when the movie got there. But yeah, there is so much going on, and I felt like the tone was kind of at odds with itself, because this is a movie that is aimed mainly at kids, and definitely is supposed to sell lots of toys. So you have lots of villains, lots of heroes, lots of kind of gadgets and vehicles and locations. But at the same time, it's a movie in which one character beats another character to death on screen. It's like, wow, all right. Okay, and one of your main characters is a divorced midlife crisis Spider-Man. It's like, I don't know, So, yeah, maybe I'm not giving kids enough credit, but it just felt like weird.
it's interesting that you brought that up because I thought like those parts were dark too, but that's why I really like this film because there's a lot of there's the lightness of and the fun of Spider-Man, but it also doesn't shy away that life isn't perfect and that
Yeah, yeah. It is very with great power comes great
and
responsibility.
Miles Morales, yeah, Peter Parker died a very, let's say, brutal death, very dark death, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought like, oh, when I saw that, I can't believe kids are gonna see this because the idea, the
Yes.
thought of it, like the way he died, it was
Yeah,
so
it shocked me.
yeah,
It shocked me, yeah.
like oh yeah. So I
But
I
at the
don't know.
same
I really like that aspect of it. That it wasn't just whoopie-doopie-doo. It's not it's not Hotel Transylvania 3, I guess, where everything is just
No,
fun and
yeah.
there's no
There's
stakes. Like this, I think the dark side gave it stakes, and but at the same time because it's about a kid who realized that he has superpowers that he saw someone had before him, and he's just I guess having fun with it while also stressing out that he's the new Spider-Man.
yeah, yeah. I totally agree with you. I think like the darkness, I like it, but I'm not sure whether it fits in a movie that is aimed mainly at kids or to this level. Like I think like a an 11, 12 year old kid would get it, but a 5, 7 year old kid, I don't know whether
If
they would. So
Yeah,
that to
but I mean, if
me, you
those
know what I mean?
kids
Yeah.
were like me and I watched things that were dark as a kid, I think I'll be like, oh, that's scary. But as an adult, when you watch it again, you will appreciate it more. You're like, oh, it's cool that they trusted me with this, is with something as grave as
Yeah.
death or divorce or just being a terrible, having your life not go the way you hoped and making terrible decisions. Yes.
Yeah, just like a lot of the movie is
Yeah.
so no one told you life was gonna be this way. And
And
yeah.
I just want to say this is like the first Spider because I like Spider-Man as a character, but he was never my favorite because I understand his appeal.
Yeah,
His
yeah.
appeal is
same
that
here,
he's
yeah.
just a normal kid who got bitten by a spider, and you know after that, what did he do with his powers? He became a superhero or whatever, and he had a hot girl. He had a hot girlfriend at the end of the day, and I guess that's
Yeah. He was very
yeah.
much like the nerd gets his
But
revenge, you know.
this
That's
I
the
understood
archetype that
that
it was.
theory, and I could see that being something that a lot of boys would relate to. But I think after watching this film, I felt that way. I felt like I could have been Spider-Man as well, where because the line that Mary Jane had,
Yeah.
I thought was really good.
Yeah.
I don't know whether this was from any comics, but she said something along the lines of, um, Peter didn't ask to be bitten by a spider, but oh sorry, Peter didn't choose to be bitten by a spider, but he chose to be Spider-Man. And I thought that film had so much impact on this, on what Spider-Man is, or what I perceive Spider-Man to be. Because I know the theory. I know why people found him appealing, and I know why people were so angry at Amazing Spider-Man 2, and how the spider would only have worked if it was Peter that it bit. But this was when I truly, truly
Right. Yeah,
understood
yeah, that's right.
what it meant to be Peter Parker and Spider-Man and the appeal of his mantle. Because you see it happening to other people as well, and what they did
Yeah.
with that spider power, and how they really had a sense of justice, and they just wanted to
Yeah.
do good. That they didn't choose, they didn't ask for superpowers, but they did something with it anyway. And I thought like that was so admirable, and it really made me want to be, I guess, a better person. I'm
Yeah.
not going to be a better person because I'm a terrible person, but it gave me hope. Yeah, but
No,
and
Jerry, don't sell
what else
yourself
does that
short.
say? Oh yes, and I really love the message that they had, where they said you're not alone. And I think that that's such a powerful message for kids, and it's a powerful message for
Yeah.
people in general, like adults. And this is what I love about Phil Lord and Chris Miller stuff. They they hide these heartfelt. Okay, Phil Lord wrote this. I think Phil Lord and Rodney Rothman wrote this. They hide a lot of heart within the
Yeah.
comedy. So they make it easy to access for everyone, but they actually have a message to say at the end of the day, and the message is so
Yeah.
relatable. It's so simple because it's obvious. It's obvious, but you need to be reminded of that because life is so sad. So you need to be reminded that you are a good person. You're surrounded by people who are generally good. So don't forget that. And I really love that message. I went ahead, sorry.
No, no, that's okay. Like, I think a very big part of why 21 Jump Street worked is that on the surface it looked like, okay, it's just a superficial kind of spoof of an old TV show, but you really got into the characters. You were very, like, I was very invested in the insecurities that Jenko had, that Channing Tatum's character had, and I was like, yeah, it is a bit sad where he is now, and he, like, through the whole movie, he kind of has a crisis. And there is an emotional weight to that, as much as everything that goes on around him is very crazy. So that I think that is something you have identified that is very true. That the way they sneak hard into their material is not like they're whacking you over the head with sentimentality, but it draws you in with the humor, and then after that you're like, huh, okay, I actually was invested in that. So to me, what you said just now about Mary Jane's speech, that was one of the best parts of the movie. The memorial service for That World Spider-Man, I cried, and the scene where all the people are in the crowd wearing Spider-Man masks. Like, I think Spider-Man, to me, when that character is most effective as a symbol, is as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You know, it's not when he's with the Avengers or when he's selling his marriage to Mephisto. It's when the idea is that New York can rally around him, and everyone rallies around him. And I mean, it's a bit cheesy now, but I always go back to that scene in Spider-Man 2, in the Sam Raimi one, where he's in a train and he's unmasked, and they look at him and he's like, he looks just like my son, you know. And they pass him through the crowd, and that idea of the ordinary guy being someone that everyone can rally around, that nothing is too trivial for him. If a cat is stuck in a tree, he's gonna go save the cat. And I think that is something which symbolically has a lot of power. And to me, where the movie was most impressive was in the philosophical ambition of it being a movie about the hero's journey, of it being a movie about how there is one story, and the one story echoes throughout the multiverse and presents itself in different permutations. Like, they kind of make a very obvious point of drawing the parallels between how each version of Spider-Man from the multiverse is similar, but it's only their kind of aesthetic presentation and the details in the story that's different, but they all follow pretty much the same trajectory. And it's a story about storytelling, which to me was really, really interesting. But I felt like there were many points in the movie where kind of the reach sort of, yeah, the reach escaped the grasp. Like, I felt like it lost the grip on it a little bit sometimes. I'm sorry that like it's awkward because you love this movie a lot, and I'm trying to find a way to explain why I didn't. But at the same time, I really like this movie. I think it's a great movie, but it's just that I didn't love it as much as a lot of people did, and I spent a lot of time thinking about why.
Yeah, which is fine. By the way, this movie really makes me want to play the PS4 Spider-Man game. I have like a newfound love for Spider-Man after this film. It yeah, but I don't be worried that you don't like it. Yeah, don't be worried that you don't sorry. Don't be worried that you don't like it as much as everyone else, because I think we've all been there anyway. And yeah, I don't know, this film just, like every Phil Lord and Chris Miller film, which they only produce, by the way. I don't want to take anything away from the directors, which I should find now, which is Peter Ramsey and
Yes, yeah.
Rodney Rothman. I didn't know he directed this.
From Paris Shetty,
Yeah, and yeah, so I don't know. I feel like this is as close to a perfect film as can be, and I think and I will say this as in, because to me, a perfect film isn't a film that, you know, oh, it has to be like the next big thing that influences everything. To me, a perfect film is you set out to do something you want to do and you achieve it. And I think it did everything that it wanted to do. Like, it's like, to me, the Lego movie is a perfect movie because it did what it wanted to do and it did it so well, and it executed it, like, I think, perfectly. And this is how
Right.
I
Yeah.
feel about Into the Spider-Verse. And I feel like I'm talking over you and telling you why I love it
Yeah.
so much because
Yeah.
I really, really love this film. And I don't know, it's just one of those films where it really changed my perspective on a character that I've seen so many times. And I've enjoyed most of the films that he's in. I even like Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like, I know everyone hates that. I've only seen it once, but it was entertaining when I watched it, and I teared up when Gwen Stacy died because I thought that Andrew Garfield's performance was really good in it. But this made me realize what was in the Sam Raimi movies that wasn't in,
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man and even in Homecoming,
Yeah.
where the symbol Spider-Man is and the relatability that he has to the citizens. That's what makes
Yeah.
Spider-Man one of the most popular, if not the most popular comic book
Yeah.
heroes.
Yeah.
Because he is what you can imagine yourself to be. And the things I always knew this in theory. I just never felt
Yeah.
it. But now I do. And it's really cool. It's really nice.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's comparable. I mean, it's not exactly the same thing, but it's comparable to the Dark Knight trilogy. The idea of Batman as a symbol, and how like Batman is a symbol that gives the people of Gotham hope, but that also strikes fear in the hearts of
Yeah.
criminals. Yeah, and this is along those lines of Spider-Man is more than Peter Parker. And so here are all the different incarnations in which Spider-Man is more than Peter Parker. And it is true that it's really, really hard to kind of put a spin on a character that everyone knows. And that's why it was such a clever idea to go and do Miles. And because this came out in all the Sony leaks where they were like, no, we don't want Miles to be our live action Spider-Man. Our live action Spider-Man always needs to be Peter Parker. And then Phil Lord and Chris Miller are like, there's no rule that says that Miles can't be in the animated movie. So that was such a good idea. It's a great place to start.
And it's
Um,
wonderful too because you can do so many visuals with it, and people, I guess, are more forgiving because it's an animated film. So they won't be like,
Yeah.
oh, you're only doing this because token.
Like, yeah. And at the same time, I think it's important for kids to see a hero like Miles.
Yeah.
Like, I think we cannot discount the importance of representation. And I think this movie is not overtly political in the way that Black Panther was,
Mhm.
but it is cool. It's cool to see the kind of music that Miles likes, the kind of art that Miles likes, the way that he expresses himself, that is kind of who he is inadvertently linked to his culture and his heritage, even though the movie doesn't make a big statement about that. So I thought that was really well handled in establishing Miles and his relationship to his dad and to his mom and to his uncle. So that was all stuff which was really great. But I felt like when the movie had to kind of be a Spider-Man movie, and especially when all the other versions of Spider-Man came in, it was like, I think you said that you felt that the movie always went back to Miles as its center, and I think that it mostly did, but I feel like at the same time in the middle it kind of lost it a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Then they kind of pulled it back at the end. Yeah, so that's kind of how like you needed to see the other Spider-Verse characters because it's called Into the Spider-Verse. But then when that happens, it distracts you from the Miles arc.
I
As much as they try to weave the other Spider-Verse characters into the Miles
and
arc.
speaking of people seeing Miles as a hero, there was a girl beside me who started crying when he just spoke Spanish. Like, it was just very casual Spanish, and she was like, "Oh my God,
Yeah, yeah. To
he
his
just spoke
mom,
my
yeah.
language," and I was like, "Oh my God." So that was so
Yeah,
that
that's
was
how
touching and
important it
sad at the
is.
same time that that
Yeah.
was the thing that made her cry. But yeah.
yeah, that people are so starved
For it in mainstream Hollywood entertainment. And I always say, more voices, more stories
Yeah,
is
look at
never a
Miles.
bad thing. More voices, more stories from different places. Yeah.
And shout out to Shamik Moore, who I thought he's so amazing as Miles. Amazing. And also Chris Pine. Yeah, Chris Pine was the voice actor for Peter in his world, and he has a very nice voice. I just want to say that. The best Chris in the business. So let's go on.
Oh, Chris Pine was
Yeah.
the blonde Peter. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah, but the default Peter, like the overweight Peter. So I keep on bringing that back to him. It's not like I'm very skinny either. That was what's
Jake
his name?
Johnson from New
Jake
Girl.
Johnson. Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, and Jurassic World and the Mummy.
Oh right, he was in the Mummy.
It's so weird watching him in the Mummy. It's like, what is Jake Johnson doing in this movie? It's just bizarre.
Yeah. So let's go on to spoilers.
Yes, of which there are plenty. Spoilers for Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we recommend this film. I recommend this film. You obviously
Yeah.
do too. Just
Yeah, I recommend this
just
film.
check your hype. I guess that's the end of.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think I have very complicated feelings about this movie, and this
I think you should
episode
watch it
has
again.
been me passing it. Sorry,
I think you should watch it again.
I watched it again. I went to see it a second time.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, then it's fine. Like
Yeah. It did improve for me a little bit the second time. Like once I knew the pacing and once I knew what was around each corner, and when I was looking out for more details, I did enjoy it a bit more. But I still felt like it was, I mean, mess is too strong of a word, but it still felt messy. It still felt, and I mean, as much as the animation is gorgeous, it's very distracting. There's a lot of like chromatic aberration going on.
yeah.
And there are many bits where, like, I feel like most people would get used to it after a while, but there are many bits where it looks like you're watching a movie in 3D without the 3D glasses. It looks like it's not aligned, and that's a stylistic thing.
Oh, by the way, I just want to tell you, you know their face, the apparently a lot of the lines there to give it the comic book effect, they're all hand drawn.
The Band-Aid, right? As in like the I felt that was great, and especially on Mary Jane.
Yeah.
Like, their Mary Jane was very expressive and sad
Yeah.
because, like, in this movie she's mourning the death of friend, and the way they did that was beautiful. I really liked their Aunt May, Lily Tomlin, who voiced Miss Frizzle in The Magic School Bus. So that was a very good touch. Like, they made Aunt May Alfred in this
Okay,
movie.
so I don't know much about Spider-Man. I almost said Harry Potter. I don't know why, but I don't know much about.
Very much just similar.
I don't know much about Spider-Man.
Often to whom
but
things happen.
I audibly gasped when I found out that the Prowler was his Uncle Aaron, because I did not see that coming.
Oh, okay, you didn't know that. All right, yeah. Like
I
interesting
feel
thing,
really
yeah.
dumb.
So with the Prowler,
Because like I know, I
No,
could
not at all.
just feel a
Yeah.
lot of comic book fans just sighing collectively because I didn't realize that the Prowler and
No,
Uncle
yeah.
Aaron were the same people. They're like, oh, he's been in comics since like
Yeah.
or something. I don't know. I guess 12. No, hang on. When did Miles Morales come? I don't know.
yeah, Miles was like
Six.
06 or 07. Like I think.
So-
yeah, 06. Yeah. So
Yeah, I was very shocked. And
right, yeah. I thought Mahershala
Wonderful.
Ali did a
Yeah.
great performance. Like, yeah, he's so good. He's a very, like, he's an actor that he can be really scary,
Warm,
but he can
yeah.
also be really warm. And you see that a lot in Moonlight, especially. Like, that's one of the best performances of any actor recently. Him in Moonlight.
I just love the music that comes out when the Prowler is on the run, and you hear the blares.
Oh, yeah, like.
And it's genuinely. I think like they set up the Prowler so well for him to be so menacing, and like obviously when it became Aaron, it's like, oh no, now what he like. I guess that's a good way to beat the villain, you know, because there's no way Miles could have beaten him.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah, so you had to add in
and
that
it's really weird
connection,
because
that
I don't know
personal
why I
connection.
don't feel cheated that Uncle Aaron was the Prowler. Like it, I mean, come on, like what are the chances of that?
The
But
Prowler?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I ate that up. I clearly ate that up, and oh man, like it's
Yeah.
I was so sad when he died.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. Well, okay. With that, I felt like it did get quite melodramatic, and I guess that is a hallmark of the comics. Like, this is a very usual thing to happen in the comics. It suddenly turns out that your brother is a villain. So I feel like it's getting used to that mode of storytelling, but at the same time, it felt weird. It felt weird to go from Spider-Ham to Aaron dying in the alley. You know, like to me it was jarring.
I don't know why I don't have that tonal shift problem.
Yeah. I think like I don't know. Maybe it's the visual sense of it that unifies the movie more for you. But for me, it was just like it works, but at the same time, it doesn't really work. And okay, so how I know Prowler is Aaron Davis, even though I don't read the comics, is because in Spider-Man: Homecoming they cast Donald Glover as Prowler, as Aaron Davis. So that was a kind of a cool touch because Donald Glover had voiced Miles Morales in an earlier Spider-Man cartoon, and then there's a scene where he tells Peter Parker, "I've got a nephew," and there's a deleted scene where he actually calls Miles on the phone as he is stuck to that police car that Spider-Man webs him to. So that was a nice way of nodding towards Miles existing in the MCU, even though it's unlikely that he will become Spider-Man in the MCU, ? So it's like they were sort of hinting at Prowler by having a criminal uncle of Miles Morales in Spider-Man: Homecoming.
But I didn't know that he would be working for the guy.
For Kingpin?
That much he, I don't know. I really did not see that coming. I don't know why, but yeah.
Yeah.
Did you like the relationship between Miles and his dad? Or did you feel like that was rushed? Because I think that was my biggest issue, and by biggest I just mean it's a very small issue because I was touched at the end, but I thought that their relationship I wish I saw more of that relationship. You know, the problems that they have with each other.
Yeah. I have to admit, I was a bit confused because Miles takes his mother's surname, but it doesn't seem like his mother and his father are divorced. Because
They're not.
He's called Miles
right?
Morales, yeah. But his dad is called Davis, Jefferson Davis. So it should be Miles Davis. So I maybe that's explained somewhere in the comics, but I was like, in the beginning, it's like, oh, okay, maybe his mom and dad are divorced. But then later, they are clearly in the same house. So I was a bit confused. Like, I know Miles Morales gets you the alliteration that Stan Lee likes, that you're always looking for in a Marvel character, and in a bunch of DC characters as well. Yeah, I like the relationship between him and the dad. I thought there were bits of it that were a bit cutesy, a bit Pixar. I like that. But I love I think the scene where he was at the door and he was tied up to the chair. That was great. It was also clearly over the line, clearly manipulative, but it was done so well. It was performed very, very beautifully by Brian Tyree Henry. And the way they did the split screen, showing you the wall in the middle and the dad on one side and Miles not being able to reply on the other side, was just heartbreaking.
See, I thought that was really cliche. I was like,
yeah,
it could have gone about another way, but okay, that's the way they want to go.
I thought it was like over the line in terms of being manipulative, but I thought it still worked. And I think a lot of that is performance. Is like really Brian Tyree Henry was great. Like all the voices in this movie are really, really good. I really liked how they did Gwen in this movie. I think Gwen was a lot of fun because like she is very much, the designated badass female character, but they did give her a bit more depth to that. They showed you like she has a lot of trouble connecting to people because she has experienced betrayals in the past that lead her to shut people off. And I liked how she opens to Miles little bit by little bit, and they develop the relationship between her and Miles, but it's not obviously in a romantic direction. So that to me was like really good storytelling.
Yeah. I hope it's not romantic. I don't ship it.
I like how Peter ships it.
Yeah. It's kind of weird though, because there is
cute.
Definitely a Gwen Stacy in his universe. But
That's true.
I'm pretty sure that Gwen Stacy died, so
yeah. So yes, that I never thought of it that way. Yeah, okay, like for me, like far and away the scene stealer is Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir. Like so good. So good. Hilarious.
His
like
lines are so
when they announced him as Spider-Man Noir, I was like, yes, this is brilliant. Sometimes I let the match burn all the way down to my fingers so I can feel something.
and then it
Oh,
goes away, and he's like, oh, because it doesn't reach his
yeah,
fingertips.
it's so funny. I drink egg creams and I punch Nazis. Oh, so great, so great. Yeah. What did you think of the individual different Spider-Man? Like, which one was your favorite?
Oh, no, hands down. When I heard this line, I'm like, oh my god, yes, this is that character. That's too serious. That's so hardcore that it's funny. I love it.
Yeah, and I love the bit when they're all comparing like their origin stories,
Mm-hmm.
and then he was like, "Wow, you got a hardcore origin story."
Yes, no, I think it was when Miles came back and he's like, oh, my uncle died.
Oh, my uncle.
And
Yes,
then,
that's right. Yeah,
and then
yeah.
Spider-Man
He's like, you
was
got a
like, oh,
hardcore
that's
origin
very
story.
hardcore.
The bit where they were comparing origin stories is when Spider-Man says, "For me, it was my Uncle Ben," and then Spider-Man says, "For me, it was my Uncle Benjamin." It's like, for me, it was my dad. Yeah, did you like Penny Parker? Did you like the anime kind of injection?
Yeah,
into it?
I mean, it kind of reminded me of Big Hero 6, but especially at the end.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. Yes, I liked it, but at the same time, like to me, that was when the movie felt the most commercial. It's when it felt the most like executives thought this was funny.
I don't know, like I think she is the least interesting of all the Spider-Mans. But
Yes, yeah,
that's
that's
because
what
I
I
always
felt. Yeah,
compared her
yeah,
to Hero and Baymax, and Hero and Baymax are clearly more developed.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's very much modeled on that, and like it's one joke. I mean, for all of them, the idea is that it's one joke. But with Spider-Man Noir
It's
and
funny.
with Spider-Ham, like they flesh it out a little bit more. Yeah, it's funny. Like, do you have a problem with cartoons? Was such a great line.
And there's one line where he says like that's awful, and then I forgot which one who was the one that said it, but they were like saying, "Can you say that legally?"
That was really, really funny. Yeah. There's a very good Easter egg that kind of is a tribute to John Mulaney, who voices Spider-Ham. So in the alternate New York, you see a sign on Broadway for a Broadway show called Hi Hello. In real life, the show is called Oh Hello and stars uh, John Mulaney and Nick Kroll. So it's them like dressing up as cantankerous old guys, and it's a kind of like a surreal comedy show with a lot of audience interaction that
Oh,
was
that's
on
cool.
Broadway and very, very well reviewed. So I was like wondering, why is there such a prominent sign in reference to that? And later when I found, oh, John Mulaney is Spider-Ham. Okay. And yeah, he was really, really good. Like
The
sort of the
moment
cadence.
Miles
Like.
became Spider-Man when he's
And
jumping off the building and like the shot of that, and the comic book like slapped
yeah,
on the screen. Oh man, I turned towards Lucas and I was like,
yeah,
oh, like it's so good. I don't know why I didn't see that coming because they were
yeah,
obviously building up to that. But like the comic book and the symbolism of that,
to
whew,
that, yeah.
it's so good.
The way that he's earned it, yeah. For the last 2 days, I'm the one and only Spider-Man was great. Was so great, yeah. And I like that the movie ended on a shot
Hmm.
of Miles
Yeah.
with his headphones on, rather than a shot of Spider-Man, because it's like that's who he is, even more than Spider-Man, and he's both of those things. So that was, yeah, like I felt like the movie did a very good job of creating a compelling character in Miles, but there was so much other stuff that the movie was throwing at us that kind of made it a bit hard for me at least to keep track of Miles and of Miles' arc. So yeah, I mean, I can't tell you if it would have been better for me if the movie were just Miles Morales Spider-Man with no Spider-Verse stuff. Like I can't say whether that would have been a better movie for me. But it just felt like the more stuff we were seeing, the more it was getting in the way of them developing Miles.
I don't know. I'm really sad you feel that way, honestly, because I don't see that. I saw it as adding texture
Yeah.
to adding texture, adding interesting stuff into Miles Morales, and Miles himself is a
Yeah,
very interesting character.
it does.
Is
It does.
And he's
Yeah.
funny, he's smart, he's very endearing, he's adorable. But I think you add in Peter Parker and his relationship with Peter B. Parker, right? The fat one.
Yeah.
Like I love that relationship that they had because
Yeah.
he was so antagonistic towards he okay, that's it. Peter B. Parker basically had the Jurassic Park character development where he didn't want kids. But
Yes.
after hanging
Yeah.
out with Miles, he's like, maybe I do
Maybe I
want
want
kids.
kids.
And I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that he softened up to Miles, which was I don't know, I really like that. But I love father-son relationships, and I'm a sucker for that, as you all know. So
Right. Yeah, I think you really do have a point, and I think like ultimately the movie was trying to make the philosophical point of there is this one hero's journey, but there are many ways in which it can be presented, and it's the details that matter. And yeah, I guess for me the scenes that affected me the most were anything that had to do with Mary Jane, because I feel like Mary Jane is such a miserable, awful person in the Sam Raimi movies, and in this movie, like you saw just a tiny bit of Mary Jane, but obviously Peter Parker, Spider-Man, meant so much to her in a way that Peter Parker didn't really mean anything to her in the Sam Raimi movies. Like she just dumps him 100 million times and moves on to whatever. So the scene where she was asking for more bread, like that was just great. That felt like kind of classic Phil Lord and Chris Miller. It felt like something from Cloudy with Chance of Meatballs, something from Clone High. It felt like Abraham Lincoln blubbering over Cleopatra, that kind of thing. Or Joan of Arc. And so it was those little touches. It was kind of like the bits of personality that I really liked, but I don't know how well the whole thing hung together. So I guess that's the most concise way to put it.
I really wonder how Disney feels now.
Yeah, because this is like
these are the people that they fired.
Right, yeah. And at the same time, I feel like maybe 21, 22 Jump Street are great, but maybe it's the medium of animation that really allows them to exploit their full potential. And at the same time, this is not really a Phil Lord and Chris Miller project. It's something that was written by Phil Lord and then was directed by Bob Perrichetti, by Rodney Rothman, and by Pete Ramsey. So there is their involvement and, director displacement. Like whoever is the biggest name is always mentioned first. Just like we'll say Peter Jackson Mortal Engines, but actually it was directed by Christian Rivers and it's produced by Peter Jackson.
It just felt like such a Phil Lord and Chris Miller movie.
It did, yeah. It did have their vibe.
Because I've seen Puss in Boots, I've seen Rise of the Guardians, and both of them don't really match up to the energy that's Into the Spider-Verse has. And the one that I can compare it to is like Lego Movie and Cloudy, where a lot of things are happening, but to me, you never lose track of the character arc. You never lose track of the heart of the film. And that's such a Phil Lord and Chris Miller thing to do. So that's why I feel like this...
Yeah, there's like the gleeful anarchy with a bit more going
and I feel
on,
like
right?
this is why it felt... Because I know they produced it, and I don't really know how much an executive producer can do to a film. They can do a lot, but like I think it's really, you can really feel their hands on this film, and it felt more Phil Lord and Chris Miller than it does Peter Ramsey. And okay, you know what? I don't want to say this. I'm gonna cut this out. It feels really terrible to just like discredit people like this, but I felt.
No, that to me is interesting because whenever I'm watching a movie, I'm always like trying to figure out who did what. And that's always the interesting thing is you're seeing a movie and it's never obvious. Or it's usually not obvious. And sometimes you're sure that someone came up with something, but then it turns out that Robert Downey Jr. improvised shawarma and Dolph Mother Know You Wear of her drapes.
Good movie. I would watch it again. I think I'm gonna watch it again. And probably be more critical of it. I probably can't. Because I'm too amazed by everything.
I was... So to the extent by which I felt that the animation style could be a little bit headache-inducing sometimes, I still really want to see this in 3D, and I'm a bit disappointed that Sony is not bringing it in 3D, because it very much was intended to be watched in 3D. And the filmmakers, directors were like, normally we are not saying that you have to watch everything in 3D, but please watch this one in 3D, because the world was designed with that in mind. So hopefully a 3D version comes out on Blu-ray, because I found out that a lot of the big 3D movies this year that I was really looking forward to were not released in Blu-ray on 3D. So Alpha didn't come out in the 3D release on Home Video, and criminally Mission Impossible Fallout is not available in 3D at home, and I was so disappointed because I was like, I have like an old 3D projector that I sometimes watch 3D movies on, and I really, really wanted to watch Mission Impossible Fallout in 3D at home.
All right, so what a great movie. So next week, not next week. I don't know when it's coming out, but when Aquaman comes out and when Mary Poppins Returns comes out,
Next week.
we're gonna review that film. Apparently, Mary Poppins is great, which I'm very surprised by, to be honest. And
No, I'm not surprised by that at all. It looks good.
and Aquaman is also getting pretty good reviews, which I'm not surprised by because it's done by dang it, I forgot, James Wan, who
James
makes
Wan!
very
I'm
good
so
films.
proud of
Yeah.
James Wan. Yeah. I'm hyped. I'm hyped for Aquaman. So Aquaman and Bumblebee I'm seeing next
cool.
week. But Mary Poppins I'm missing the screening, unfortunately, because I'm going to Malaysia with my family. And every year when we do that, I end up missing one or two of the holiday movies. But I'm very relieved I'm not missing Aquaman or Bumblebee. That's
Bumblebee
all.
honestly looks really good. So I'm looking forward to
I cried like 30 seconds into the trailer.
Oh, you watched it already?
No, the trailer. In 30 seconds into the trailer, yeah. Not seen it yet. It does look very good, and I love Haley Steinfeld as an actress more than as a singer. Yeah.
Alright, so see you then. Bye.
Yeah, this was so much fun. Thank you for talking about this, and thanks for sharing your experiences on your trip as well.
Yeah, okay, bye-bye. See you next time.